Why do good people, people in committed relationships, sometimes find themselves falling for someone else? The answer is often way more about psychology than it is about pure passion. It's a story that goes so much deeper than you might think, and it all starts with a guy named Chol.
So first, I want you to meet Chol. He's a middle-aged professional, you know the type. Kind, gentle, pretty calm. By all accounts, he's a genuinely good person. He's got a strong moral compass, and he truly believes infidelity is just fundamentally wrong. Honestly, he's the absolute last person you would ever expect to be in this kind of situation.
And yet, that is exactly where he finds himself. Despite everything he believes in, despite his commitment, he is developing these incredibly powerful feelings for a classmate. So that's the puzzle, right? If he knows it's wrong, what on earth is pulling him in so strongly? So what did this other woman actually do? Was it some grand dramatic gesture? Nope, not at all. It was actually the little things. She just called him cool and a good person. She gave him her number. She actually listened when he talked about his problems. And, knowing that he often skipped breakfast, she started bringing him warm tea and bread. See? They're all small, simple gestures, but they all add up to one incredibly powerful thing: warm, active attention.
Now, Cholsu's story, it feels really personal, right? But his experience is so far from unique. In fact, what's happening to him is part of a much, much wider pattern.
Get this, a 2015 survey of 2,000 married Koreans revealed a pretty startling number. 24%, that's nearly 1 in every 4 people, admitted to having had an affair. This isn't some fringe issue happening to a few people, it's a really significant part of the human experience.
And the data gets even more surprising when you look at income. For people earning over a certain amount, that number, the rate of infidelity, jumps to a staggering 52%, more than half. So this tells us the problem isn't just about a lack of resources or financial stress. So what is it about?
Well, to understand the real reason, we have to dig a lot deeper. We have to look past the present day, past the current circumstances, and all the way back into the past. Because the diagnosis, it lies in a long-forgotten but deeply powerful unmet need.
You see, the affair isn't really about the new person. It's about how that person accidentally stumbles upon and then starts satisfying a deep, unmet need from childhood. For our guy Chol, that core need was for warm attention.
Let's just trace this back for a second. As a little kid, Cholsu's parents were always busy with work, which left him feeling pretty lonely. And what do kids do? They internalize that stuff. He came to believe it was his fault, that he must just be unlikable. So he was initially drawn to his wife because she was so sociable, and she totally filled that void. But now she's understandably preoccupied with their 3 kids, and that old familiar loneliness has crept back in, making him incredibly vulnerable.
This quote just captures the psychology of it perfectly. When a child's fundamental needs for attention and care aren't met, they don't think their parents are flawed. No, they conclude that they are. They start to believe that they just aren't worthy of that love and attention in the first place.
And this childhood wound, it creates a kind of fork in the road for us when we become adults. It leads to 2 very different mindsets for how we handle our emotional needs. And one of them, well, it's a passive path that can lead directly to betrayal.
Okay, so on the left, you've got the child's attitude. This is when you're passively waiting, just hoping someone will come along and magically fix your loneliness or your insecurity. This makes you dependent and super vulnerable. But on the right, you have the adult's attitude. This is where you actively take responsibility for your own needs. You use your own resources to make yourself happy. And that creates resilience and true emotional independence.
This leads us to a really critical question. Was Chol really falling for his classmate? Or was he falling in love with that intoxicating feeling of having that childhood void, that deep need for warm attention, finally being filled? Because that distinction, it changes everything.
So if waiting around for someone else to come and fix us is the problem, then what's the solution? Well, it's a really powerful idea that shifts all the responsibility for our happiness right back where it belongs.
This comes from an incredible TED Talk by the writer Tracy McMillan. She proposes that the single most important marriage commitment we will ever make isn't to a partner, it's to ourselves. Her own story gives this idea so much power. I mean, she was abandoned as a child and spent years terrified that her partners would leave her too. And then, after 3 divorces, she had this huge revelation. The only person who could promise to never leave her, to never abandon her, was herself.
So what does it actually mean to marry yourself? It means you stop outsourcing your happiness. You take on the job of providing yourself with the love, the care, and the validation that you've been hoping to get from other people this whole time. It is the ultimate act of self-reliance. And you can actually break it down into 3 simple, actionable steps. First, you have to identify and name your unmet need. For Chilsu, it's warm attention. Second, you take full responsibility. You just acknowledge, okay, this is my job to meet this need. And third, you take action. You actively use your own time, your own money, and your own energy to give yourself exactly what you're craving.
Just think back to Chilsu. He definitely has enough money to buy himself a warm tea and some bread for breakfast. The problem was never a lack of resources. The real issue was that he didn't feel he was worthy of that care, at least not from himself. He was stuck in that passive waiting mode, hoping someone else would do it for him.
You know, we so often think that the cure for our loneliness is finding the right person, but the true, lasting solution is becoming the right person for ourselves. It's all about learning to provide that care and attention from within.
And that brings us to one final question. We spend so much of our lives looking outward, searching for someone to complete us, to make us feel whole. But what if the person you've been waiting for all this time is you?